Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. On this week's video, we're going to talk about why, if a woman is unfaithful to you, you must immediately dump her. You must immediately end the relationship. The title of today's presentation is A High-Value Man Will Immediately Dump an Unfaithful Woman. So let's get into it. Why? Why, if your woman is ever unfaithful to you, must you dump her immediately? Number one, after cheating, the trust you once had is forever broken and can never be repaired. I don't care what she says, what she does, you'll never be able to trust this woman again. And you don't want to live like that. You don't want to live with someone you're always going to be wondering, what is she doing? Who's she thinking about? What are her plans? You don't want to live like that. So that trust can never be repaired. You may eventually be able to forgive her, but you will never be able to forget it. You can forgive and you should forgive because you don't want to have that tearing you apart inside. Okay, so you need to forgive the person, who's wronged you, but move on, move away from them and cut them out of your life. You will never get the thought of your cheating spouse and the AP out of your head, regardless of what she does for you. I don't care what kind of sexual act she does for you. I don't care what else she does for you. It's never going to be something you can get out of your mind. That infidelity will always be in your mind. When you're with her, you're going to be thinking about that guy plowing her. And you're never going to be able to get that out of your mind. Thus, if you reconcile, now this is the most important thing I can really deliver here. If you reconcile with a cheating partner, your cheating partner and her affair partner will forever be in control of your mind and your thoughts. They basically will own you from that point forward because you've basically given her a pass. So now she owns you. She controls you. In your mind, you're going to be thinking about that all the time. You're going to be thinking about her infidelity. You're going to be thinking about her with that affair partner, and it's going to tear you up. I don't care what you do. I don't care how strong you think you're going to be. You can never get past that, folks. And that's the biggest message I can deliver here. Clear your mind. Get a clean break from this disgusting individual and move on. Any disagreement you have going forward, you will always think of the affair and be tempted to bring it up to shame her. Now, you can step back and say, no, I'm a bigger man than that. I would never do that. I would forgive her for this. I would compartmentalize this and I would move on. Believe me, you're not going to be able to do that. If you stay with a cheating spouse, people in your family and your community will never, ever look or treat you the same, regardless of what your stature is. You could be a president of a company. You could be, a top politician. You could be a major athlete. If you take back a cheating partner, a cheating spouse, and it's known that you did that, people will never, ever look at you the same. They will think less of you. And the final point here I have is you will think less of yourself. You won't carry yourself like you did previously. You will have more self-doubt. You will have more negative introspection into yourself. And that's something you don't want to do. You always want to be able to navigate life from a position of absolute strength. And don't ever let anything weaken you, specifically someone you put a lot of your trust into. So now let's get into a story here that's really going to illustrate my point. I tried making my marriage work after wife's infidelity, but psychologically, I couldn't do it. I wanted to share my story of how my wife's one time infidelity ruined our marriage and destroyed our family unit. This all happened 4 years ago when my ex-wife and I were 45 years old. We grew up together and became sweethearts in the 8th grade. So they've been together like in total, not just, their marriage, like well over, 30 years. If it was 8th grade and they're 45 years old now, or were 45 years old at the time. We have been inseparable ever since the 8th grade, basically, he says. We were each other's one and only loves up until my wife had a one afternoon affair 4 years ago. So instead of a one night affair, apparently she had this tryst in the afternoon. At that point, my wife and I had been married for 25 years and were very happy. So they married at age 20, very young, too young. And of course, they were both very inexperienced. They, according to him now, they only had sexual relations with each other. So they had no experience with love, with relationships. They were just each other's one and only. And I'm not saying that can't work, but it's very difficult to work, put it that way. Ever since we fell in love in the 8th grade, we've always been an unbreakable team. My wife was a stay-at-home mom and loved being the caretaker of our family. She was so proud of me and our 2 children, daughter now 23 and son now 21. So this is 4 years later. So at the time, their kids were 19 and looks like 17 when this all went down. She loved cooking, cleaning, gardening, sewing, and just creating a wonderful home life for the 4 of us. We regularly made love and our passion for each other seemed to be evergreen. Our ideal existence was shattered during the July 4th holiday weekend of 2017 when my wife disclosed to me she had sex with another man earlier that year. I'll now set up the situation and explain. At Christmas of 2016, I gifted my wife with a new state-of-the-art kitchen with all new appliances, new lighting, new cabinets, and new floors. This is something she always wanted, and I saved up for 3 years to buy it for her. So if you're talking like a state-of-the-art kitchen, you're talking about a huge expense. I mean, just the ranges, top-of-the-line range can cost $8, $9, $10, even $15,000, $20,000. So it doesn't say how much he spent here, but obviously he's saved for 3 years to buy it, so it was a lot. I hired a well-known designer contractor and his team began work in January. Throughout the construction, my wife was so excited, and each day she would update me on the progress and on any modifications she made. She was so happy and thanked me daily for getting this for her. When the kitchen was finished and the crew had moved on, my wife's demeanor suddenly changed. Okay, so this was a red flag, but of course at the time the guy didn't put 2 and 2 together. She was still the great mom, homemaker, and lover I always knew, but she became very clingy to me and overly loving and adoring. She has always told me how much she loved me and treated me like a king, but this was way beyond the norm. So again, here's another red flag here, this clinginess. Every night in bed, she wanted me to hold her tight prior to us going to sleep. She was having trouble sleeping, seemed distant, and was losing weight. So again, here's more red flags that something has happened here that has changed this woman. Psychologically, she's different now. You would think after she got this kitchen that she always wanted, that she would be on cloud 9. I could sense something changed. She and I discussed her changes and weight loss a few times, but she just chalked it up to her loving me and our family so much. Fast forward to the weekend of July 4th. Her sister and husband were taking our 2 kids with them and their kids to the beach and would be back on Tuesday. It was Thursday night and we had just finished dinner and had cleaned up, and she and I were sitting in the living room. My wife approached me crying and said, I said, "What's wrong?" She came over to me and melted into my arms and began to sob. She said, I have something to tell you and I hope you will still love me. I said, I'll always love you. What's going on? She then said she had been unfaithful to me. Now this had to stop this guy, basically stop his heart, I'm sure. She said that she and Joel, the crew leader of the construction team, had sex on our sofa where we were now both sitting after he completed the final walkthrough of the kitchen with her. Good Lord. I couldn't believe what I heard and felt extreme anger and hate. I said, you did what? Tell me that you're kidding. With this, she began to sob uncontrollably, and I knew my worst nightmare had come true. I stood up and pushed her away, and she sunk into the couch crying and pleaded with me not to hate her. As I stood up, I was looking straight into the kitchen, and it made me sick. I had to get out of there and fast before I lost it. So I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and began packing a suitcase. My wife was outside the door sobbing and begging me to let her in. After about 15 minutes, I opened the door and walked out with my suitcase. She cried and pleaded for me not to leave, but I said, I've got to get away from you and this house before I lose my mind. She asked where I was going and I told her I would be in touch. I left and drove an hour away and got a hotel where I stayed for the next 2 nights. During this time, my wife called and texted me constantly, but I only replied once to her, letting her know I was all right and that I would be in touch. It was Saturday evening and I called my wife to tell her I was coming home so we could talk. When I arrived, she looked terrible, like she had been crying ever since I left and was as pale as a ghost and was totally emaciated. She was shaking and went to hug me, but I kept her at bay and said, let's go into the bedroom and talk. I didn't want to see the kitchen or the living room where the infidelity took place. I can imagine. I had her tell me what happened, and she explained that after their final walkthrough, Joel kissed her and they had sex on our couch. She said it was consensual, but she immediately regretted what she had done. Man alive. These women, I'll tell you. She said the guilt and shame was eating away at her and she had to tell someone, so she told her sister this past Tuesday, and her sister said she had to tell me, or she, the sister, would do so when she returned from the 4th of July holiday. So that's a good sister-in-law there, I'll tell you what. A lot of times women will keep these dirty secrets between themselves, which is totally disgusting. But this is obviously a good woman here, this guy's sister-in-law. She said she would do anything to keep me, as if she lost me, her life would no longer be worth living. She said she would even let me have an open relationship and see other women if it meant that was the only way I would stay with her. I told her I took a vow and would never cheat on her while we were married. With that, she burst again into tears. I then told her to look at me and listen closely to what I was about to say. I told her that I forgive her for the transgression. I explained I did so not for her, but for my own peace of mind. And that's what's important here. He didn't do this for her because she committed, the ultimate act of disloyalty, to disrespect, and to breaking of the trust. So he didn't do this for her. He did it for his own peace of mind, as he could not live with this eating away at him. I then told her that I no longer trust or love her. In fact, right now I have hate for her for what she's done. I can imagine. I would have absolute rage and hate for this woman, and I would not want to even look at her again, okay? Let alone talk with her or have anything to do with her. I went on to explain that I don't have any romantic feelings for her. In fact, she is repulsive to me, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to touch her again. Hearing this, she again burst into tears and began pleading with me, saying, please, I'll never do anything to hurt you again. Don't leave me. My life will be over if you do. I told her I wanted to see if we could work things out, but I was doubtful we could do so. I said that I can no longer stay in this house, as seeing that kitchen and the living room would be a constant reminder of her infidelity. She said she wanted to get out of the house as well, as it was the same for her. Now remember, before, she was distant and she was losing weight, not eating. So obviously this has been wearing at her, and every day, she was in those rooms where this infidelity took place, and it was eating away at her as well, it looks like. I then told her we need to separate for a while. She begged me not to do so, but I told her it was necessary for us to heal and to see if we could rebuild our relationship. I told her that I would stay with my parents and she could stay with her parents or her sister's home, and our kids could decide with whom they wanted to live. She again began sobbing uncontrollably. I then explained that the next step in our healing process is that we had to tell our parents and then our kids when they got back on Tuesday. Good move there by this guy, because, if you don't get this out and make it public right away, this woman or any woman could go out and spin a story that, oh, my husband left me, he's dropped me, he's treated me terribly. And by making her come out and disclosing this immediately to their community, to their family, she's not going to have the ability to do that. And it's also going to make her fully become aware of what she has done. She again began sobbing, begging me, and begged me not to make her do this, but I told her she had to. We then retired to separate bedrooms. In the morning, we called our parents and made arrangements to meet them at their individual homes during the afternoon. We met with both sets of parents, and it was very emotional. I opened the conversation, then let my wife confess. She cried uncontrollably each time. The gravity of what she had done really hit her hard, and she was really in an extremely frail condition. I explained to her parents that she would be living with them for the time being, and explained to my parents I would be living with them, and our kids can decide what parent they want to stay with. My daughter is going off to college next month, and my son is going to be a senior in high school. So while it will be hard on them, it would have been much harder if they were much younger. Yeah, these are very, much more older kids. They're really young adults here. So it's going to be hard for them, hearing this. But, they're at an age where they can easily move on, and it's not going to really disrupt their lives all that much. Our parents were very shocked, disappointed, and saddened. Her mother was extremely angry and screamed out, "How could you do such a thing to your husband?" Both fathers just shook their heads in disgust, and my mother was very emotional. I explained to all of them that I no longer trust my wife or love her and absolutely have no romantic feelings for her. I went on to explain our plan was to see if we could rebuild our marriage in the coming months, and if not, that I would file for divorce. Hearing this made my wife burst into hysterical crying. That night, each of us stayed at our respective parents' homes. On Monday morning, we called her sister and explained the situation and arranged for a time for her to drop off our kids when they got back on Tuesday. So they're coming back from this 4th of July beach weekend, so the sister and brother-in-law are going to be dropping off the kids. I took the day off, and we met my wife at our home for their arrival at 3 p.m. She was visibly shaken, gaunt, and pale, with black circles under both eyes. She looked completely different than she had just 1 week ago, and like another person from the beautiful, supple woman she was just 6 months ago. Our kids arrived, and my sister-in-law hugged me before she left, saying how much she, her husband, and family loved me, and that they would always be there for me no matter what happened. See, this is a very good woman, this sister-in-law. You can tell. She left, and we told the kids what occurred. I opened up the conversation and again turned it over to my wife to explain the affair. It was very emotional. I could just imagine. My kids were in shock and totally disgusted with their mother, especially my daughter, who wouldn't even look at my wife. I explained to the kids that we would be selling the house due to the bad memories and that we would be living separately with our parents for the time being as we work through things. Both kids immediately said, "Dad, I want to live with you." Throughout the entire conversation, my wife was crying and totally distraught. Fast forward 4 months and I made the decision to divorce my wife. While I did forgive her and know she was truly remorseful, I could not regain the trust, love, and deep passion I once had for her. I found it very difficult for me even to be in her presence, had absolutely no desire for her, and could no longer stand the sight of her or the sound of her voice. You see, if he would have stuck this out, he would have been in an eternal purgatory. Because as he says here, he could not even stand being in her presence, had absolutely no desire for her, and couldn't even stand the sight of her or the sound of her voice. Now imagine having to live like that every day. And a lot of these guys, these weak guys, these beta males, that's how they're living with these cheating spouses that they've taken back. Can you imagine living like that every day? Life is not supposed to be lived like that. Life should be happy because you have a very short time on this earth and you need to make the most of it. You don't want to live in misery. My wife was devastated and my kids were upset, but understood and wanted me to be happy. Our kids have reconciled with their mom, but their relationship with her is totally different now. They just don't see her the same way. It's obvious, because not only did she break a trust with the husband, she broke a trust with those children, because now all of a sudden, these kids really don't know this woman. They thought this woman was this way all their lives, and then all of a sudden, they see what she's done, and all of a sudden now she's a different person to them. And that's how I would look at her if I was her child. They don't trust her and rarely visit with her outside of Thanksgiving or Christmas. So not only did she lose her husband here, but she really lost her children. Her children, it looks like, are just visiting her when they feel obligated to do so, at the holidays. Our divorce was relatively painless as my wife wanted nothing and petitioned the court to not award her anything, but I insisted she take half of our assets as she was an excellent partner to me up until the time of her transgression. I know people will think I'm crazy for doing so, but I feel good about making that decision. I don't really criticize him for doing that because, like he said up front here, she was an excellent partner for him for, what was it, almost 25 years of marriage. So, she deserved to get some of the assets, let's say half of the assets, in a situation like this. Whether it's half or maybe a quarter or whatever, it's debatable, but she deserved to get something because she was a good mother, a good wife to this guy until she committed this transgression. My wife claims she will be giving most of the money away to my kids when they are older. 4 years later, I bought a new house and just started dating again. My wife moved into an apartment, got a job in a local retail store, and is still trying to get me back. She says that she will never love another man again and feels one day we'll be together again. She remains in a very frail state physically and continues to suffer extreme emotional problems from our breakup. I have a friendly relationship with her, but I have made it clear that I will never have romantic feelings for her again. My daughter graduated college and has a good job lined up, and my son is going into his senior year of college. They are both wonderful kids, and I could not be more proud of them. They've made peace with their mother, but as I said previously, they don't look at her the same way and have little contact with her. Our parents are great and very supportive, and I still have a close relationship with my wife's parents. So that's good. It was like a full family here. This was truly like a, long-term partnership where this was like a, blended family almost. These two families came together, and now this wife's infidelity basically wedged and really did damage to this whole dynamic. And again, it's not just with the spouse in this case who she cheated on. She also drove a wedge between herself and her children and her parents and, of course, his parents. So again, I think if these women would think through the gravity of what they're doing before they cheat, they would not make the decision. But women, as we all know, react on emotion. They act on emotion. They do not act pragmatically, and they don't think things through. What happens is, like in these affairs, oftentimes, like in a situation like this where it's a bad decision that she made, but she did make the decision to sleep with this guy, she immediately regrets it once she realizes what she did, and she has all kinds of guilt. But what she should have done in a situation like that is, whoa, hey, I've got a wonderful husband, I've got great kids, I've got a great family dynamic. I don't want to put that at risk for sex with this strange guy. But again, that's something you can never pull back. Once it's happened, the deed is done and the relationship is over. I wanted to tell my story to help other men who may be facing the same. For me, reconciling after infidelity was not possible. Though it was a single event, and again, guys, I wanted to tell this story because this is a situation where it truly was just a single event with this woman. And his wife, as you can see through this story, was truly remorseful, and he has a high degree of confidence she would never hurt him again, as he says here. But his trust was gone. The trust is gone, and he could never get that affair out of his mind. He goes on to say here, I didn't want to live the rest of my life this way. His advice to anyone who's been cheated on would be to forgive the cheating partner, but immediately end the relationship. Don't drag it out. And I would add, don't drag it out for the kids, because the kids are not going to be happy if you as a parent is not happy. They're going to sense that. They're going to sense something's not right here in this dynamic. Whereas if you split and you are happy, then the kids are really not going to be impacted all that much. Yeah, it'll be a different living relationship, and yeah, they'll have different relationships with their parents, but still it's going to be a happy relationship instead of relationships where there's a dark cloud constantly hanging over the parents because of this previous infidelity. Forgiving them, he goes on to say here, forgiving them allows you to regain control of your mind. Now again, what I said up front is if, once somebody has done you wrong, once someone has cheated on you, now they have control of your mind, both they and that affair partner, because that is going to control all of your thoughts until you cut them out of your life and you forgive them. So you can't do one without the other. You can't just forgive them and then reconcile, because that's still going to be in your mind. But if you forgive them and cut them out of your life, get rid of them, get rid of that cancer, if you will, then you're going to be fine. It's going to take you some time to heal, of course. I mean, everybody's human, everybody has feelings, but you're going to be able to move past that much quicker and be a much stronger person on the other side. And he says here, again, regain control of your mind, and ending the relationship enables you to regain your manhood, your self-respect, and move on with your life. So I think this is very good advice here. I think this is a great video to illustrate, once again, if your woman cheats on you, whether it's your girlfriend, your fiance, or your wife, you must immediately end the relationship and then take time, but do forgive her, and then move on with your life. You need to clear your mind and don't let anyone own your mind except for yourself. So thank you for watching today's video. If you've got comments, please put them, down in the comments section, and like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I'll talk to you on the next video.